My job was simple, be the shield for the Sinclair heir. I even took a bullet for him just as promised. My last act, an accidental, blood-stained kiss as I fell, should have been the end. It wasn't. I woke up, gasping for air that didn't smell of gunpowder and blood. The first thing I saw was the ridiculously expensive thread count of sheets that could only belong to one person, Ronan Sinclair, my boss, the young master, and he was looking at me not with the shock and horror of watching his bodyguard die, but with an ancient, predatory hunger that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It was the look of a man who had waited a lifetime for this exact moment, and I had no idea why. The Onyx Lounge was a haze of expensive smoke and music heavy enough to weigh on your soul. It couldn't mask the anxiety churning in my gut. Boss, you look like hell, Blondie muttered, leaning in close. The good life getting to you. I took a long drag from a cheap Maverick, the smoke a familiar burn in my lungs. I was a nobody from nowhere, lucky to have landed a gig in the Sinclair family security detail, luckier still to have been promoted to the young master's personal bodyguard. It was a good life, but lately my boss had become strange. I leaned against the cool wall of the service corridor, the cherry of my cigarette glowing in the dim light. I exhaled a perfect ring of smoke, my thoughts as hazy as the air. Just keep an eye on things, Blondie, I grumbled, flicking an ash. These rich kids are a different breed of trouble. This lounge was Sinclair property, my property to protect. You got it, boss. As Blondie scurried off, I crushed the cigarette, but under my heel I popped a stick of gum, chewing aggressively to kill the taste. My phone buzzed. A cold dread, sharp and familiar, shot through me. It was him, the young master. For the past week his gaze had been following me, heavy and unnervingly intimate. It was the kind of look that stripped you bare. He'd stare at my mouth, my waist, my ass. It felt like he was plotting something. The other night I woke up to find him sitting by my bed, just watching me in the dark. The sheer, silent intensity of his stare sent a primal fear through me. I had to physically swallow the scream that wanted to claw its way up my throat. Young master, I'd managed, my voice raspy. Are you sleepwalking? He didn't move, just kept staring, his dark eyes bottomless pits in the moonlight. I took a deep breath, swung my legs out of bed, clad in nothing but a worn-out tank top and plaid pajama pants. They say you're not supposed to wake a sleepwalker. I looped my arms under him to lift him, a solid, warm weight against my chest. As I hoisted him up, his eyes shifted, a flicker of cold calculation in their depths. He whispered two words that froze the blood in my veins. As I thought, my scalp prickled. I almost dropped the 18-year-old heir to the Sinclair fortune. He wasn't a child, he was tall, well-built, and radiated an authority that had nothing to do with his age, and in my arms I felt something else, a definite, hard pressure against my stomach. Oh, young master, I'm putting you down now, I said, my voice tight. A frown creased his brow. So eager, he murmured, his tone laced with a condescending amusement I didn't understand. I had no idea what he was thinking. Then I'll carry you back to your room, I said, my patience a thin wire. His eyes drifted to the dark circles under my own. TSK, I never realized you were so emotional. Just one little comment and I looked like I was on the verge of tears from exhaustion. I was just his bodyguard, his employee, his word was law. I have no emotions where you are concerned, young master, I said, my voice flat and professional. My only focus is you. He studied me for a long moment, then gave a nod of regal permission. Carry me back to my room. I did as I was told. I placed him on his bed, but he immediately stood up, and I realized with a jolt that he was now taller than me. He'd had another growth spurt. His gaze dropped, tracing a line from my mouth down to my chest. My thin tank top did little to hide the shape of my pecs. His eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint within them. I instinctively hunched my shoulders, a hot wave of shame washing over me. Sir, if there's nothing else, I'll be outside. Call me if you need anything. Wait, Ronan commanded. He stepped closer. Why are your lips so red? What? I licked them reflexively. It's probably just hot in here. He closed the distance, his fingers clamping around my jaw. It wasn't a request. Open your mouth, he ordered. Let me see your tongue. My mind raced, trying to compute what I had done wrong, what rule I had broken, but my body, trained for obedience, complied. My mouth fell open. I felt his thumb press against my lower lip, pulling it down. The touch was electric. We both froze. This is the boss. This is the client. He has his reasons, I chanted in my head, fighting the instinct to bite down on his finger hard. The wet, warm sensation seemed to startle him. He let out a soft TSK, so eager to taste my hand, he murmured, a flicker of a smirk on his lips. You look so innocent, but you're a quiet one, aren't you? He coughed, regaining his composure. Your mouth is very soft. Have you kissed anyone before? The question hit me like a physical blow. I shook my head, my body rigid. No, I haven't had a girlfriend. He seemed pleased by that. Good. I felt like a dog being praised, and I didn't want to be his dog. That night was a blur of confusion, but one thing was clear. The boy I was hired to protect was gone, replaced by a man whose presence was a heavy, suffocating weight. He was still a teenager, but he carried the authority of a king. Another cigarette did nothing to calm my fraying nerves. Walking back to the private room, I heard a crash and a shouted curse from inside. Ronan Sinclair, you son of a bitch, I'm going to kill you. I didn't hesitate. I shoved the door open just as another man, wiry and furious, lunged at my boss. Ronan saw me and a cruel smirk spread across his face. Royce, he commanded, tear his. He didn't need to finish. I was already moving. I shoved Ronan behind me, a protective arm across his waist, and met the attacker's charge with a closed fist. The man, Dylan Mercer, Ronan's cousin, went down with a satisfying crunch. A brawl erupted. It was their bodyguards against me. It was enough. These were soft men in expensive suits. I was a weapon forged in hardship. It was over in seconds. The other rich kids just stood there, chanting uselessly, guys, please don't fight. Too late. Fight's over. Ronan stepped forward, his expensive shoe pressing down on Dylan's face with sickening force. This is just the beginning, you worthless cur, Ronan hissed, his voice dripping with venom. You're dead. I didn't understand the history, but I understood the threat. Ronan looked from his whimpering cousin up to me, and that strange, possessive look was back in his eyes, that look that said, see, he's mine, he protects me. I just looked back, confused. As we left, Ronan gave Dylan one last kick for good measure. Then, outside the room, he did something that nearly made my heart stop. He grabbed my hand, his fingers, warm and smooth, wrapped around my wrist, pulling me along. It felt wrong. Alien. Two men holding hands. It wasn't just unprofessional, it was intimate. He stopped suddenly, and I almost collided with his back. He turned, his eyes locking onto mine. He raised his other hand, his fingers tracing the shell of my ear. Why, young master, I stammered, my entire body going rigid. His touch was light, almost clinical, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. He pinched my earlobe gently. You did well back there, he praised, his voice a low purr. He moved in a split second, protecting me without question. In his past life, Ronan had thought it was just professionalism. Now he knew better. It was love. No wonder he'd kissed him as he died. Thinking of that past life, Ronan's expression suddenly darkened. He would not let the people who'd orchestrated his assassination get away with it this time. Seeing his familiar cold scowl was, strangely, a relief. I subtly shifted, pulling my ear away from his touch. Protecting you is my duty, sir. Ronan grunted, but he didn't let go of my wrist as he led me out of the building. In the car, he leaned his head against my shoulder, his warm breath ghosting over my neck. I sat bolt upright, every muscle tense. Just as I thought I could relax, he sat up, only to grab my head and press it down onto his own shoulder. My body went pliant against my will. He toyed with my earlobe again. Good boy, he whispered, his voice a dangerously soft caress. Rest now. That one phrase sent another jolt through me. I think I'm going crazy. Ronan was a sophomore in college, but he spent more time at the Sinclair Group headquarters than on campus. His presence grew heavier, colder, radiating an authority that felt ancient. The pressure on him must be immense. Maybe that's why he started insisting I sleep in his room, on his bed, and why he started doing things that made me, a grown man, want to curl up and hide. He'd trace the muscles of my chest, his fingers leaving trails of fire on my skin. He'd bite my shoulder, softly at first, then harder, leaving marks. Tonight was different. Tonight he kissed me, his mouth crashed down on mine, hot and demanding. His strength, which had once been less than mine, now easily overpowered me. I was his bodyguard. My training screamed at me to neutralize the threat, to push him away, but my body betrayed me. I only managed a weak shove, terrified of actually hurting him. My God, the professionalism is going to be the death of me. When he finally pulled away, my face was flushed, my lungs burning for air. He brushed a thumb over my swollen lips, a look of amused satisfaction in his eyes. Why so shy? It was just a kiss. Your face is so red. There will be more, I promise. My mind was a blank slate. I couldn't form a single coherent thought. He simply pulled me into his arms and fell asleep, holding me like a precious treasure. He slept soundly. I stared at the ceiling all night. Section 07. The next morning, I looked like a panda in the bathroom mirror. Ronan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. He kissed the